Uh, Today is April 6th, 2013, and the new millennium is rolling on. Today also, Anonymous is, they're supposed to be anyway. They were going to be taking care of Facebook. But recently there's been a few things happened, and I've been going through different things in my software. Google, Yahoo, Microsoft are always doing different things and switching software around, and partners, non-partners. And I have quite a bit of what I do is on Google. I've always appreciated their setup because I don't really have to install Microsoft Office every time I go to format my hard drive. Google has all the tools right there. I used to use iGoogle as my home page too, to see the news, check the mail, and all that, but then they decided to shut that down. And the other day I was looking at, what was it, Google Reader. Yep, they shut that down. So now I'm having to sort out how to go about some of the things I was doing, which now is going to take more time. But I got different blogs on different sites, and I was reading one blog the other day. It was on WordPress. A couple of years ago, when I opened up my account on WordPress, I was making tags and search terms and things like that. And one of them I made was for living with dignity. And the other day I went to do a search to see if there's any updates on living with dignity on WordPress, and the software is pretty good. It's pretty intuitive, and said there's no articles or posts on living with dignity, and it suggests they're recommended being the first one to post. And I was thinking, geez, I thought there was an organization, Living with Dignity, in the U.S., like Not Dead Yet. But in Quebec, there's Vive la Dignity, Living with Dignity. We definitely have one here. But I was thinking, it'd be good with how spread out disabled people are in different long-term institutions, to have a central location where everybody could be posting and blogging incidents that take place between them and the staff in every departments. I was born with arthritis. I've had to live in long-term care since 2000, full-time. I need help to get up in the morning, help to go to bed at night, get my legs off, stuff like that. Wash up in the morning, get my clothes and boots on, and I know different kinds of places have different setups. And I know that I've read plenty of reports through the years when I got connected with different disability rights networks, people online, different organizations, and the bioethics listserv. I've read plenty of stuff, so I know I'm not alone. But it would be good if somebody would have it in them, have enough time and energy to do it, and want to do it, to host a blog and maybe title it that, Living with Dignity, or even call it Incident Reports. But I was thinking if we left it Living with Dignity, that way it'd be a little bit help us to post things, but also give solutions or possible solutions. How the problems could be fixed once and for all between inmates and the staffers. I pretty much, consider long-term institutions that were, pretty much inmates, because there is a pretty similar attitude for the workers who are not with the same attitude as far as really wanting to work there and help people out. There are people who just work in these places as it's just a job, something to pay their bills, and there's all kinds of problems when people are not willing to do anything, or if they don't want to do it, if they want you to beg like a dog before they'll do something. Things like that happen all the time. But there are decent people who work in these places, and it is really good to be able to have people to get along with, not just gang member mentality. So it's kind of like, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of places that people do have friends, and but it would be sure good to deal with situations. Now, in my situation, I've been here since 2000. I was here for a year and a half in 1995 and 96 after 3 respiratory failures. And doctors recommended that I move to Montreal. My last place I was renting a farm with a couple of roommates up north. But they wanted to keep the farm, and I pretty much needed to come into Montreal and start my life. It's we would worked for 20 years with an organization that kicked quite a few people out, and then they wanted to have people come crawling back in the door to have a reclassification of what status everybody had And I wasn't interested in that. I wanted to do something I could do because I was getting older, and I was looking at maybe trying to score work as a freelance writer. Well, that never turned out because the first 3 years I was on my own with my roommates. I took my full time just to study to become computer literate. And in those days, it was 20 years ago. No, it was 1991. I was 40 years old. And I had to study everything on my own. I couldn't just jump in the car and go down to school every day. In Montreal, I kind of had to go to the bookstores and get whatever books I needed and study, at home. There's nobody to answer questions, shortcut things. Because when I got on the phone to technicians, to talk to tech support, they were telling me, it costs $120 an hour for technical assistance. Oh well, nice. Thanks for the info. I just kind of studied everything. You had to learn in those days. You had to learn everything. A lot of code. You had to learn a lot of code about patching, updating programs, stuff like that. You had to learn a lot about printers, how to make them print out right on the page, and stuff like that. You had to learn about modems, modem protocols. And by that time, I was starting to have respiratory failures. And so I was here for a year and a half in 95, 96. And got along with the people here really good. But I was really tearing the walls down to get out of here and get my own place and have home care workers set up. But it took a year and a half. And when I got my own place, it was a pretty nice place. And I had home care workers, but I noticed that home care workers are the same people, the same government resources as work in hospitals as PAs or nurse assistants, whatever you want to call them. And after 4 years, all the fighting against the government, the nurses' strike in 1999, and the PAs and nurses all getting all bent out of shape, government cutbacks and everything. And I was thinking, well, I'd like to see a thing where the patients can go out and strike with the nurses, and really put pressure on the government. But a year later, when the PA, not the PAs, but the home care workers turned out to be getting worse and worse, less reliable. I had to get up in the mornings. They wouldn't come, and I got stuck a few times. And finally, when I had a respiratory failure, there were 2 or 3 times in the next few months where I'd be in the hospital, wind up to have to go back home, and unreliable. I had 1 or 2 good home care workers, but I had some pretty unreliable people. And after 4 months, I just couldn't keep going because I couldn't recover as fast as I needed to recover in 3 weeks in the hospital. So the 4th time was in July 2000. And after I landed in the hospital, they put me from acute care to a long-term ward. And the first the first night I was up there, I was really having a hard time breathing, and I could hardly stand up. And the PA comes in the room, and I asked if I could get help to go to bed at 8:30, and she just stomped her feet on the floor and stuck her chest out, her head up, and it starts telling me stuff like, "Hey, listen, buddy, you'll go to bed when I feel like it, and not before." I mean, I was really crook, and she didn't give a shit if it had dropped dead. And I was thinking, well, I'm not here to just fucking up, drop dead. I'm here to live the rest of my life. And it began to be a pretty rocky road for quite a bit. The first 5 years I was here. And that wasn't very nice, but they weren't nice either. You know, like, I sure didn't respond the way administration thought I ought to respond. Just take it, pretty much. They just figured I ought to just let people walk all over me and, mouth me off, and I was supposed to sort of like just say, wait till I get a chance to talk to the head nurse, or, try to resolve it peacefully. But there's a lot of times in these places people need to understand you can't resolve it peacefully. Because to resolve things peacefully, the person of whatever department that you're trying to communicate with has to be willing to listen, and if it's reasonable, they should be willing to make a change in how they go about things. But that's not how things go a lot of times. Now, a lot of things have happened in 13 years, and for the most part, things are pretty livable here, but I would sure like to see things be more livable for a lot of people that were living out in other places. There are a few other disabled people here too, and they seem to be doing okay. But one thing I've learned through the years, well, quite a few people have told me that the people who are on trachs and in bed all the time and can't do much, there's really not big conflicts and stuff. But when you got somebody who does want to do things and is more mobile and stuff, well, some of these people who work in these places kind of have a tendency to think they're supposed to be like a puppy dog, and it's just kind of like you're just a house pet for them to do what they want to do and not do what they don't want to do. So I usually try to get up 5 in the morning. I check the news, have a drink, and start doing it, whether I'm studying or working or something. and get as much done as I can until breakfast, because sometimes I can't get much done after breakfast because I need to sleep and breathe and digest food. And sometimes in night shift, they won't get me up at 5 o'clock. And that causes a problem for the days I do want to get up. Now, when I have to wear oxygen, it's kind of, well, I have to wear it because my lungs aren't doing so good. But everybody knows about oxygen, knows that when you have impaired lungs, that it also causes a bit of carbon dioxide buildup. So, for a few years, 2006 to 2010, I was on oxygen 24/7. And then I had a respiratory failure from a drug, which was to boost my white cells, because I was on taking interferon to deal with my hepatitis C, and I contracted that in Mexico in 1987. And when I didn't even know I had it until it showed up in a blood test in my medical report. It was first discovered in 1995, but I'd never, really known about it. Until 2000. So then I wanted to get rid of hepatitis C. So I did take one round of treatment in 2002, 2003. I think it was 2003. But I had to stop abruptly because after 2 months, there was a few heavy situations going on that I had to deal with. With a Jerry Shilpa case, and also my common law partner, my wife, was a year full-time, long-term with cystic fibrosis, and she'd had a lung hemorrhage, and had to get fixed up to help her out. And so I had to cut the treatment, the Hep C treatment. At that time, it was a really rough time, and it turned out I was clean of the virus when they did a blood test. But the second time was after 2006, when my wife finally died of cystic fibrosis. I needed time to dry and reorganize my life. So I asked the doctor maybe 2 or 3 months, and I'd start the treatment. And when I did, after his first week's blood test, he was a bit shocked at how low my white cells and red cells were. So he prescribed me a Neupogen drug to boost my white cells, and that drug knocked out my lung function within 2 days. So I spent from 2006 to 2010 on oxygen 24/7, and I couldn't do much but fight to breathe. And during that time, I also developed a stone in my bladder. So I had a pretty complex situation, and the PAs they didn't give a shit half the time that things are going on with me. You know, they didn't really give a shit. You know, and I used to really get out of it. And but after the hundreds of hours of meetings I've had with head nurses through the years, things have pretty much improved a fair bit compared to what it used to be like between 2000 and 2005. Now, these places where disabled people are being admitted to because their parents can't take care of them anymore because their disabled kids are getting older and bigger physically, and it's too much strain for the parents to have to lift them around, lift and carry them around in and out of doors or whatever, cars, and so they admit them to a nursing home. And when they get there, because the workers don't understand too much about people with disabilities, they wind up beating them up and all kinds of shit. So, like, I was thinking it would be good to have a Living with Dignity blog, maybe on WordPress.com. And if anybody was wanting to take care of that, at least it would be there and people could know about it and post any incidents on there. Now that wouldn't really be like the big solution or anything. See, aside from posting incidents, so that we all know what's going on in different long-term care facilities, it's really important to talk to the head nurses. I got to do that regularly, and since I have, things have smoothed out a fair bit. Now, one thing that really blows my mind is in this place, the hospital turns the kitchen over to a private company, and every year the company changes managers. Now, the manager they put in here last year, she was pretty nice until about a month ago. And all of a sudden I get start getting brown sugar on my trays instead of raw sugar, because I've always been specific to, I used to eat a pretty healthy diet before I wound up in the situation I'm in. Happened to move into long term, I understood that they would not be letting people eat macrobiotic diets. But I always try to stay away from white sugar, white flour products, and things like that. But the kitchen manager, she changed contracts regarding the sugar. And I asked her about it, and she said, well, that's the way it's going to be. I said, well, what about raw sugar? Is for one thing, I don't want to be putting all that bleach into my blood. I've already got, my liver's already doing enough to work, and I don't need that stuff in my blood. And she just kind of like, no way, she wouldn't bend an inch. And it turned out a few days later, or a week later, that there was raw sugars mixed in with the brown sugars. And so then I asked her to maybe separate the brown sugars from the raw sugars. She absolutely refused. And I thought, wow, this is getting out of hand. It's like, for one thing, the hospital takes our checks to cover the food and the cost of staying here in long term. And on top of that, because they only cover that, they only get basics of food. There are things I have to buy out of what's left of my check, but I'm at the point where I can't take anything more out of my check because I'd have to cut my internet bill and I'd have to cut my phone bill. And there are people who need to be able to get a hold of me on the phone. And I'm sure not going to be bound to the landline extension number when I'm not in the room. But I do have a real special friend. My best friend is in Australia, and we do stay in touch. So I need a phone. I need an internet connection, and I fork out $80 a month for my high-speed internet account, so I don't get chopped for going over my bandwidth usage limit. So I've got unlimited bandwidth. And I do a lot more stuff than the average person with when I'm online. So to have a mouthy little bitch making my life miserable, saying, "Okay, we got basically." She sees that there is raw sugar, there is brown sugar, and most people don't care what they eat. So that's why they're sick all the time, and because of the food processing industry. And I'm the only I'm probably the healthiest person here because I don't put all that stuff in my blood. So it really irritates me to have somebody who's in charge of authority in some department and they're not civilized. That to me is not civilized. So that's the kind of things that bother me. And I'm not, every time you send a brown sugar in my tray, I just send it back down to the kitchen. So it's kind of like, but on the other hand, I do have 2 or 3 friends, and when they're working down there, they make sure I get my raw sugar. That's being civilized. So I don't like being mad. I don't like really making people's life miserable. And it would be good if everybody is just really willing to get along. Nobody has to prove anything to anybody, and I'm sure not going to let people prove anything to me. When I make a mistake, I don't mind apologizing, but I'm not going to just let people walk all over me and think they're going to get away with it. It just doesn't work that way. People go rub my nose in it, how much I need your help, and I don't care. They're being paid to do their job. That was one of the problems of the first 5 years I was here. They used to go around the rooms, some of these is some of the people that were working here then used to go around the rooms and just tell people, I'm not paid for this, I'm not paid for that. I mean, really arrogant, you know, like, so, see this, oh, I gotta get it right. We're gotta get here. Whoa, oh my, there. Now you got it? Ironside's World Headquarters. A very special friend of mine. Uh, a real special friend sent it in the mail and freaked me out. Get this package. There are 3 T-shirts in it. Ironside's World Headquarters. So, so yeah, things are kind of hunky dory, but I would really like to see if there are enough disabled people in situations in different locations around the U.S., Canada, the UK, where they would be interested in writing down any incidents at this on in one blog so that everybody could read it. And if you notice, you know, if there was a blog that was for all these incident reports, it would the disability rights organizations could help use that information and for the governments to deal with, to find solutions, because the 2 things are involved: attitude. It really is an issue of one thing: attitudes, and number 2, communication skills. You know, it's kind of like, I know people that work in these places, some of them do work hard. Some of them do work hard, and they're overworked because of the people who don't work hard. And just care more for themselves and their money. But there are people who are really good people, and it really is like good to see some people when they're on shift. It really is. It's kind of like, you know, for people to have to live here, it makes them feel good, knowing that one of their friends is here. That's about all I gotta say. But if anybody does watch this, listen to it, and sorry it's so long, but I don't do videos very often. I'm all spaced out. But yeah, don't forget, Ironside's World Headquarters. Okay, take care. Bye bye. Things and switching software around and partners, non-partners, and I have quite a bit of what I do is on Google. I've always appreciated their setup because I don't really have to install Microsoft Office every time I go to format my hard drive. Google has all the tools right there. I used to use iGoogle as my home page too to see the news, check the mail, and all that. But then they decided to shut that down. And the other day I was looking at what was it? Google Reader. Yep, they shut that down. Oh. Today is April 6th, 2013, and the new millennium is rolling on. Today also, Anonymous is, they're supposed to be anyway. They were going to be taking care of Facebook. But recently there's been a few things happened, and I've been going through different things in my software. Google, Yahoo, Microsoft are always doing different. So now I'm having to sort out how to go about some of the things I was doing, which now is going to take more time. But I got different blogs on different sites, and I was reading one blog the other day. Always is on WordPress. A couple of years ago, when I opened up my account on WordPress, I was making tags and search terms and things like that. And one of them I made was for living with dignity. And the other day I went to do a search to see if there's any updates on institutions to have a central location where everybody could be posting and blogging incidents that take place between them and the staff in every departments. I was born with arthritis. I've had to live in long-term care since 2000, full time. I need help to get up in the morning, help to go to bed at night, get my legs off, stuff like that. Wash up in the morning, get my clothes and boots on, and living with dignity on WordPress, and the software is pretty good. It's pretty intuitive. And said there's no articles or posts on living with dignity, and it suggests they're recommended being the first one to post. And I was thinking, geez, I thought there was an organization, Living with Dignity, in the U.S., like Not Dead Yet. But in Quebec, there's Vive la Dignity, Living with Dignity. It's we definitely have one here. But I was thinking it'd be good with how spread out disabled people are in different long-term